tonight. Well, to the ears of overtaxed New Yorkers, the words property tax cap probably sound like sweet relief. In fact, a recent Siena poll actually found that a whopping 83% of voters support Governor Andrew Cuomo's proposal for a 2% cap that is a signature focus of his fiscally conservative agenda. Now, opposition to this idea has actually primarily come from school districts and local governments, for whom property taxes are a chief source of revenue. But they are actually not alone in their concern that capping property taxes will, instead of making things better, make things worse. Tonight, we are joined by three opponents to Cuomo's tax cap plan. Susan Zimmett is a member of the Ulster County Legislature, and then next to her is Joya Shabar, the co-founder of TaxNightmare.org. And across the table from them is John Whiteley. He is a founding member of the New York State Property Tax Reform Coalition, right? Ticonderoga.
Correct.
Right.
All right, so we've got the Hudson Valley on one side and we've got the North Country on the other.
Right.
The reason why we're talking about you guys today, in fact, this is a long-term battle for all of you.
It has been.
But you're getting some recognition today from the New York Times, which is going to help you raise your profile because you are fighting against some pretty heavy hitters.
Very heavy.
Doesn't that make you nervous?
Am I? No, I can say it. Actually, at 78, I've lived a very full life. And yes, these guys are rascals, but the worst they can do is take away my birth control pills, which, you know, I'll do without them. No, it doesn't make us nervous because we're the public. Because we're the people who have the truth. We're the people who represent the people of New York State. They represent a segment of the population. I'll be very frank with you, the top 1% of the population in terms of earnings and power. And the good guys always win. We've got the white hats on.
Okay, well, talk to me then, John, about why it is that a circuit breaker is preferable to just a straight-out cap.
Okay, well, the short answer is it'll reduce your taxes, which the cap won't do. You know, property owners are desperate for tax relief.
right.
There's no question
Clear,
about it.
yep.
And you can understand they're going to grab at anything that looks like it might help. The cap sounds like something that would help. If somebody comes up and they said, you know, would you like us to cap your property taxes? It sounds like something that they'd like.
Sure.
The problem is it doesn't, one, it won't reduce your taxes, and it won't even cap your taxes because what they don't tell you is that the property tax cap only caps the tax levy, which is the total amount a school district or a town or a county can raise in property taxes. It doesn't cap your property tax bill. So the biggest problem we have in the state, which is the hundreds of thousands of people that are already paying double-digit percentages of their income in property tax, it's unsustainable. These are the people who are really at the greatest risk of losing their home. The cap won't help them one bit. It won't reduce their taxes, and it won't even cap them. So the people who have the most urgent problem get no relief. Whatever benefits people might perceive in the cap, it's not property tax relief. That's the real problem.
Okay, so Susan, basically, to play devil's advocate, though, the people who are in favor of this say, well, look, you got to start somewhere. I mean, better to at least prevent the taxes from getting any higher, for the levy from getting any higher, and give you not relief perhaps, but at least the assurance that you're not going to go any further than where you already are.
Well, that's actually very easy to answer because we actually came together. Everybody represents a lot of different tax groups out there that represent different areas of the state. And we came together with this, what we call the Omnibus Solution, which is a bill that we actually drafted with the help of Frank Morrow from the Fiscal Policy Institute, that Liz Krueger actually adopted with Engelbright in the Assembly. And what we said when we came together was, we know that there has to be long-term reform. There really has to be reform, but we know how Albany works. We know how slow Albany works. And the problem is people are about to lose their homes now. They are losing their homes now. As a county legislator, I foreclose on people's homes, although for the past 2 years I've started to vote. Absolutely not. I will not vote on that. We foreclose. People are losing their homes now. They can't wait for Albany to get out of their way, figure out how to solve this problem, and bring relief to years down the road, okay? We need relief now, okay? So our bill is two-pronged. Relief now via a circuit breaker that helps the people who are about to lose their home get money back so they can keep their homes, and then get reform down the road.
I agree. That sounds great. But the rub is that we have a $10 billion deficit.
And you know what?
The
And the rub is, the fact of the matter is that we always, when we have money, there's no property tax relief. When they have money, no property tax relief. When they don't have money, we can't afford it. Liz, you and I know that government is all about prioritizing.
Sure.
What is important? What can you pay for? What can't you pay for? They always find money to pay for everything they want to pay for their friends, for their whatever, for their big donors. But the property taxpayers who don't have the $10 million to spend, who don't have the money that's going to be raised by all these businesses to fight for relief. They're the ones that are never the priority. And as a former supervisor who had to levy property tax on a budget, you know very well that you prioritize, you spend the money where you have to, and you make the cuts where you don't. If you want to hold property tax down, you just do it. There's always an excuse.
Okay, so
There's also that Siena poll.
Yep.
Remember,
Well,
guys, there's
yeah.
another poll where the cap went head-to-head with the circuit breaker. In that case, you get different numbers.
well, and also a cap and a circuit breaker. I think a cap is much easier to understand, right?
That's right.
In other words,
That's
it
exactly-
sounds
right.
easier to
That's
the
understand.
thing. They
Cap,
think
oh, you're
they
going to
know.
cap it? Right, they
Right.
think
They
they
think
know.
they
I see
know,
what
so
you're
they don't
saying.
explain it. The circuit breaker, you have to explain it.
Right.
But the cap, everybody thinks they know what it is.
Don't you think
and it
it's
isn't.
duplicitous that they don't explain
That's exactly
what a
right.
cap is?
In the poll or elected officials?
Elected
Oh,
officials
no,
in
and
the
in the
poll.
poll.
When they explained it in the poll, Siena did the other poll and said, this is what a circuit breaker does, this is what a cap does. People are smart enough to see the difference.
Well, and also here's the problem: the unions, in other words, the teachers' unions, are actually on the same page as you guys.
Absolutely.
But they're not funding you, right? I mean,
No,
you don't
not a
have
penny.
any. You're really
No.
word of mouth, grassroots.
These
Whereas
are
you're coming up
Empty
against,
pockets.
Okay.
We are self-financed.
But the Committee to Save New York has $10 million, and Andrew Cuomo, who has the bully pulpit as the governor, is raising money, political money, going to his donor list and asking for money.
You know what's going to happen? If they pass a cap, they spend their $10 million, they confuse people. The first property tax bill they're going to get from their schools that goes up 8%, this is a one-term governor. You can tell a story, but not a story that's easy to debunk. And you know, and you said that. Once they get their first bill, they'll know it didn't work. Then what? Then what?
I don't know. Apparently, they'll be voting Andrew Cuomo out of office,
What
supporting you.
excuse do the politicians have when they say this is going to save you, and they look and it's a 2% cap and they got a 10% increase, like they did in Gardner?
But you know what, I just want to jump in real quickly in terms of going back to his donors. I mean, one of the centerpieces of Governor Cuomo's agenda is to do public financing, to try to take money out of elections,
That's true.
Okay? So all of a sudden you're going to go to your funders to pay for your policy that you're trying to push through at the expense of the taxpayers who don't really have a voice because we don't have the deep pockets. And then it's all contradictory. It's totally contradictory.
Well,
You're either
so-
for the people or you're not.
There's also some idea that it's contradictory to say we're going to have a committee, we're going to be for transparency, but we're going to have a committee that is raising $10 million, and we're not going to tell you who's giving money to it because, legally speaking, we don't have to. It's
You
a
did
501c4.
address that.
We have addressed it.
You have addressed that.
We want to get the word out. That's, it's the best we can do is to try to sort of make people understand, give them the opportunity to understand that there are options here. This has been kind of a juggernaut that's been going. There's been no dialogue. There's just no discussion. And this program gives us an opportunity to do this. We've been interviewed on a number of radio programs. We want to basically give people that opportunity to understand what the circuit breaker is, and also what the cap is and what it is not.
Well, and also there have been states that have capped their property taxes.
That have devastated them.
And their experience has not been universally positive. Is that correct?
No, California, devastated.
There's a couple of points to just, I mean, first and foremost, to say that there's no money to fund property tax relief is disingenuous, okay? I mean, we have the millionaire's tax, which is not a new tax if they extended it. It's not a new tax, they're just extending it. $5 billion that could help close the deficit and help fund property tax relief. You know what?
Well, how much would, if in fact you did a circuit breaker, do you have some idea about how much it might
Well,
cost?
John knows the money.
Yeah, we could start. We would phase it in. It could start for $1 billion, which is serious money.
And who
But
would,
when
be who would be relieved under that particular? For $1 billion, who would get the immediate relief?
people with income paying property taxes above 9% of their income to start with.
Do we know how many people in the state are doing that right now?
It's, I think it's in the 20%, something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah.
It's very high.
And,
Sure.
and
Very
it goes up to, when it's phased in the fourth year, then it's people over 6% of their income, and that goes up into the 35 to 40%.
The problem
range.
with the millionaire's tax, aside from the side that the governor doesn't want to do it, which was one issue, and has said quite clearly that he's not going to do closing this deficit with any new taxes, and he
It's not a
considers.
new tax.
I understand, but he considers that a new tax.
Well, those are the people he has to go get the money to fund his campaign to get the cap.
Well, good point. But is that $4 to $5 billion, if in fact is what it's projected to raise in the next fiscal year,
Right.
is nowhere near. You could spend that 10 times over. It's nowhere near enough to provide property tax relief and prevent the hospitals loopholes from closing and take over Medicaid and.
There are other ways to do
We
it.
have a
And when
list
we
of
basically, when we
tremendous.
created
John
our
has a
Omnibus Consortium bill, that talks about relief and reform, we were very, very conscious of understanding the fiscal state, the fiscal budget. And so we phased something in, and we looked, to be responsible. Even though I don't believe it's our responsibility to figure out how to pay for property tax relief, we're still responsible, and we looked at it. There are ways through STAR that John can talk about. There's ways through the millionaire's tax. There's a list of a number of ways that you can go back, stock transfer tax, a list of things that could help to pay for property tax relief. If you want to pay for it, you can do it.
Liz, what you got to realize is that the state over the last 2 years has already reduced property tax relief by over $1.5 billion.
That's right.
That's effectively a property tax increase of over $1.5 billion when most of that was from repealing the STAR rebate checks. Now, that was not a great program, the STAR rebate checks. It was a flawed program, but it should have been replaced by the circuit breaker. The money, it was about $1.5 billion. It would have funded a really nice circuit breaker. We almost had that 2 years ago. We almost had it.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just want to show people these are Joya's these are Joya's sort of illustrations. You can find them actually on taxnightmare.org.
Yes.
Correct. You can also get more information at NYSpropertytaxreform.org or omnibustaxsolution.org. Right.
That's
I want to
right.
thank all of you for coming in.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for having us.
for
Thank
giving
you.
us
Thank you.
this
Thanks for having
opportunity.
us.
Thank you.
Great.